If you watch this, the chances are you like adventure game books of some sort. As no, I certainly do, and something I'm trying to get back into. It was something I quite liked reading through back in my childhood, and I'm trying to relive that to a certain degree. I'm going around collecting whatever I can, and there's certain books I'm trying to remember very hard that I read back in my school days. Some I can remember quite easily, the titles were quite rememberable. Others it was a bit more difficult. This one took a bit of tracking down. It's called Nightmare Store. Now the reason I gravitated towards this was the cover. This is, by massive coincidence, the same kind of cover that the book in my middle school had. What attracted me was the word nightmare. In the UK there was a show called Nightmare, which is a kids TV show where you have a dungeoneer and 3 advisors. The dungeoneer wears a helmet that completely obscures his or her vision. His or her advisors stay behind with the dungeon master, Traegard, to guide that person through the maze that is the Nightmare Dungeon. I can't remember what the actual place was called, but he was called the Dungeoneer for a reason, or she was called the Dungeoneer for a reason. It's because they went down into the various different levels trying to win the game by defeating Lord Fear. But the show was called Nightmare, with a K, because you're supposed to be a knight, kinda, sort of. And because I saw the word nightmare, I must have been in a very tired state or something at the time, because I was thinking, oh good, that'll be a book about Nightmare itself, the TV show, because I saw the helmet, and while it has absolutely nothing to do with it, you know, it did sort of summon visions of going into the dungeon as the dungeoneer, and I thought, oh, okay, let's go for it. And then I saw this, a plot your own horror story. Very eerily similar to Choose Your Own Adventure, even down to the fact that they've got a red border, but in this case it's dripping red blood. Yeah. Suffice to say, this has absolutely nothing to do with Nightmare at all, the TV show that I grew up on, but it is still part of my childhood. And I remember going through this book, and first of all, obviously being disappointed because it had nothing to do with the TV show, and then I actually read it properly and obviously quite enjoyed it. Unlike most adventure game books that I have already reviewed, okay, it's a little bit different in terms of bill. I mean, this is one of the reissue of the Warlock Firetop Mountain, and as you might be able to see, roughly speaking, it's the same width and depth and so on and so forth. But if you look at something that was, you know, from the time, something contemporary like Choose Your Own Adventure, it's a lot wider and so on and so forth. I mean, that's a modern reissue I've just shown you of the Warlock. Here's something else that's contemporary to the time, Avenger. There's going to be a review of this as well. I'm not sure if that's going to go up before this, because I'm reviewing this before I review that, but you can see the difference straight away. The height difference is noticeable. This going into your bookcase alongside this is obviously going to stick out a bit, but you know, when it's alongside something like the Warlock, then you know, it's going to fit quite nicely. Not quite sure what was going on there, but you know, I can only speculate. Anyhow, I've rambled on for 3.5 minutes without actually looking at the book itself. Basically, it's exactly the same kind of gameplay as the Choose Your Own Adventure series. There's no skill, stamina, no dice roll, no luck, no faith scores, no magic systems, and so on and so forth. Let's just read the intro here. Nightmare Store. A plot your own horror story. It was such fun going shopping at the store with no grown-ups to tell you what to do. But you were so tired you fell asleep in front of the TV display. And now it is late at night, the store is long closed, and you cannot get out. Worse, everywhere you turn, things in the store are changing into something much bigger and infinitely more horrible. Which creature will destroy you? The huge angry bear? That the soft fur rug has become? The iguana, which has turned into a massive alligator, now gaining on you fast. Head swinging from side to side. The enormous spider, with blood-red eyes sending out beams of light. Or Purgot, the colossal limping robot. Your life is in your hands. Which way will you turn? Oddly, it doesn't capitalise the word you in any way, shape or form, which is or put it in bold or italics or anything like that, which is usually one of the things that they do with this. Anyway, this is declared as being a magnet book. It's by Hilary Milton. I have no idea if that's a man or a woman. First published by Simon Schuster in 1982. This particular version was printed in 1984. The artwork is copyright of the Methans Children's Book Limited. Printed in Great Britain by Richard Clay. Right, let's just have a quick little read through here of the opening page. Page 1. So it's the page system, just like in Choose Your Own Adventure, not the paragraph system that you see in a lot of other game books. Going shopping for yourself all on your own is something quite new and different for you. Home is a small town in Mississippi, not far from the Tombigbee River. I have no idea how you pronounce that. But this week you're visiting your aunt and uncle Louise and Jerry Hardesty in Atlanta. For the past 3 days they have taken you all over the city, showing you where the Falcons play football, Underground Atlanta, Six Flags over Georgia, Jungle Land and even Stone Mountain. Tonight, however, Uncle Jerry has a short meeting with some of his company's officials from out of town, and Aunt Louise is at the hospital, visiting a friend who was injured in an automobile accident. Uncle Jerry suggests that instead of staying home by yourself, you spend the evening in Wallenberg's, the newest and largest department store in Atlanta. And to make it more interesting, he has given you money to buy something for yourself and a gift to take back to your younger brother. Going shopping by yourself, you discover, is more than just a little fun. Nobody says, let's go to the dress shop. Nobody says, let's go to look at men's shoes or suits. And nobody tells you not to handle any of the items on display. Oh, it's fun! And Wallenberg's is an especially good place to have fun in. It's huge! Much larger than any store back home. In fact, as you walk from section to section and from floor to floor, you have the feeling that this store has even more departments than all the stores back home, even if they were under one roof. You look at clothes, you wander through the model rooms of furniture, and then you ride the escalator downstairs to the really interesting department, sporting goods and clothing. In one large area you see tents, camping equipment, inflatable rafts, fishing gear, all sorts of athletic training devices and even skiing outfits. You can't help smiling when you see those who can ski in Atlanta. You linger at the section where the camping equipment is because you think Ray, your little brother, might like a camp stool. He's always moving chairs around so he can sit where he wants to. After looking at everything carefully, you finally ride the escalator all the way to the 4th floor. Off to one end is a display of television sets, and you wander in that direction. This place is not like any television display area you have ever been in before. Instead of having rows and rows of seats all tuned to the same station, they are arranged in groups, 3 to each location, with comfortable chairs where would-be purchasers can sit and watch the shows. That, you decide, is the best way to look. You can truly see how the different sets perform. A clerk walks over while you're standing beside a deep brown lounger and asks if you don't want to sit down. You'll enjoy the programme better that way, she says. You thank her and sink down in the huge recliner. You lean back and watch for a while. However, you've been walking much more than usual and you're tired. You don't intend to, but you fall asleep. And nobody wakes. In the dream, you're just going to read the words, the end. And that'll be it. That'll be all of it over for you. We've got a bit more information at the back here. So yeah, we can all predict, obviously, what that will be. There's more adverts for other books here. We've got the world's best monster joke book, Exploration Infinity, and so on and so forth. Plot your own adventure in space. Let's just take a quick look over the artwork and whatnot while I'm blabbering on about everything else. But yeah, we can obviously automatically assume what the plot's going to be, but it doesn't matter that that's what's going to happen. We can all guess that. What actually matters is the journey that you go on. And I've got to say, I do like that artwork. That seems to be some kind of... At first glance I'm thinking bear, but then you see those are hands and those are feet. You know, bears don't have hands and feet. You know, well, okay, they've got hands and feet, and it's just not in that kind of configuration, so what the hell is that? But, yeah, it's ultimately, for me, any story, no matter how cliche it might be, how predictable the plot might be, it's all about how well it's written and so on. You know, yes, you might be able to predict something, but are you actually going to enjoy the adventure? Far too often people are just willing to dismiss something as, oh, we've seen this before. Well, so what? There's only so many variations of the same story we can have. You know, at the end of the day, was it actually told competently? Was it told well? Did they actually manage to surprise you in some regard that perhaps you're just not willing to admit to? There's all kinds of ways that I could digress there. Anyhow, I've held on to this particular picture, this particular image for too long. If you're terrified of spiders, sorry! But yeah, there you are. I'm definitely loving the artwork. You know, it tends to use the full page quite nicely. You know, when it is the full individual pages, and the artist is obviously quite good. Notice that I'm flipping from right to left. Oh, there we've actually got a proper bear here, and there you are again. Somewhat unusual. The artwork tends to be almost from your point of view, but sort of behind you in a sort of third-person view. If you remember things like Choose Your Own Adventure, you're usually in there in sort of images that, you know, if they were on TV, you would simply be the main character. The artwork was never from your point of view, whereas things like Fighting Fantasy, on the other hand, the artwork tended to be from your point of view. I think there were maybe some rare exceptions to that, but definitely in this case, the artwork is very sort of third-person-ish in most cases. I am liking that robot. That is so well done. Such, you know, the aesthetics are very sort of kind of 60s-ish, 50s-ish. That kind of period, that kind of era. The actual attention to detail gives it such a sinister look, such a nicely realistic shine in some regard. As realistic as a huge killer robot can be. Obviously, because they ain't real, but oh, snakes! Why did it have to be snakes? And there you are, in the same terrified third-person pose that you've been in pretty much on every other picture here. Most of the pictures seem to be depicting your death, which is kind of a shame, but be nice to see the artwork being used to show you escaping from something. And an alligator! All the things actually mentioned in the pre-ramble and so on and so forth seem to be available in picture form in some way or another. That were out of artwork, and of course the back of the book itself. If you have ever seen yourself starring in a terrifying adventure story, Nightmare Store gives you the chance to put your dreams to the test. When the day's special treat turns into an evening's nightmare, which way will you turn? You are all alone, locked in the department store at night, and all the toys are turning into gigantic and evil versions of their earlier selves, into terrifying creatures bent on your destruction. Don't go near the Toy Story version. God knows what Woody and Buzz will be up to if they're evil now. And can you imagine an evil version of Optimus Prime? Oh wait, yes, they have actually done that before. Whether or not you ever get out alive is entirely up to you. It depends only on the pages you choose to turn. You know, it would be nice if there were more of these still in vogue, so to speak, if there were more new versions of these being made. Because I do feel that we're sort of missing something by not having them. Yes, the Port of Peril turned out to be genuinely a new book in the Fighting Fantasy range out of all of the books that they reissued. For some reason I thought all of them, or at least most of them aboard the Warlock of Firetop Mountain, were supposed to be brand new, but no. I'm going to hold off on impressions at this point, you know, because I've not really played through this at this point. I've just done a first impressions review. I'm going to do a let's read, and at the end of the let's read, then I'll be in a position to actually, you know, really come to terms with it. The let's read itself, I've decided I'm going to go for a time limit. It's going to be 10 minutes. I may review that again and reconsider that after I've edited this video, but we shall see. Anyhow, stay tuned for the let's read, the let's play, the let's read. Which one did I actually go with again? Let's read, that's what I've decided to call it. Let's read and play. I'll see you in that, and I'll hope you enjoy. Share this with anybody who's interested in this sort of thing, because I'm sure they'll probably have plenty of thoughts to post below, as will most likely you. Cheers! A little quick insert, because I've actually done the review at this point and then realised that there were certain things I missed out on. So quick insert, and then we'll get into the actual first impressions proper that I already did. The book is in very good condition. Obviously it's second hand. I bought it from Amazon's, one of Amazon's sellers. You can see a blue line there, somebody's obviously gone at it with a biro or something, but it is in very, very good condition. Yes, there is damage where it's been rather thread worn and so on and so forth, but and the pages do have a certain amount of yellowing, but that's only to be expected with a book that's about 25 years old. It feels good. It does have a very aged smell to it. That's the thing I've noticed about paperback books. Even paperback books that my parents had back in the day had a very similar smell to that because they had aged so much by the time that I came on the scene. You know, it was books that my parents had since their own childhood or their teenage years or whatever. That had obviously been exposed to air and so on and so forth, and therefore aged. So if you open up a book like this and have a sniff, it actually didn't smell bad. There's a slight whiff of perfume, which suggests that there might have been, it might have been exposed to perfume in whoever's house it was, but it's very faint, very barely noticeable. You have to really sniff for it. But, despite all that, I can't say it's in pristine condition because it isn't, but and it's obviously not in terrible condition. It is in very, very good condition. This should last quite well for a nice long time, with all properly taken care and consideration.